I think that this is the closest our country has come to accidental nuclear war. Cold War nuclear strategies expert and former president of the World Security Institute Bruce G. Blair said this during an interview on Dateline NBC back in November 2000 about Stanislav Petrov. We just explored something similar a few episodes ago with Vasili Arkhipov.
Our goal is not the victory of might, but the vindication of right. Not peace at the expense of freedom, but both peace and freedom here in this hemisphere. And we hope around the world, God willing, that goal will be achieved.
Guess there have been a lot of close calls when it comes to the destruction of the civilized world. So who exactly is Petrov, and what did he do to save the world from a nuclear war? Stanislav Petrov was born on the 7th of September 1939 near Vladivostok. His father was a fighter pilot during World War II, and his mother was a nurse. After graduating from the Kiev Higher Engineering Radio Technical College of the Soviet Air Forces back in 1972, he became a part of the Soviet Air Defense Forces. He quickly climbed up the ranks and became a lieutenant colonel. He was assigned to the new early warning system back in the early 1970s, where he worked in detecting ballistic missile attacks from NATO countries.
1983 is the height of the Cold War.
It was the 26th of September 1983, more than 20 years since the B-59 submarine incident with Vasili Arkhipov.
I had a written order that I could release it. And if there was an order to fire the torpedo, I would do it without a second thought.
Petrov was on duty at the Serpukhov 15 bunker near Moscow. In it was the command center of the early warning satellites, codenamed Oka. If inbound missiles were detected, the Soviet Union's strategy was to launch a counterattack against the United States, as stated in the Doctrine of Mutually Assured Destruction.
We were prepared just in case. And this just in case happened.
It was half an hour past midnight. The computers just detected something. On the panel in front of Petrov was the flashing red button. The word START stared at him.
Start. The siren howled.
One intercontinental ballistic missile was detected to be headed towards the Soviet Union from the US. Shortly after, the warning system detected 4 additional missiles in the air. Everyone was stunned. Petrov started giving orders, but he was having doubts.
The team scrambled to check the authenticity of the signal. They had only 28 minutes until the impact.
He didn't understand why there would be just 5 missiles. If the US were going for a nuclear attack, he thought that there would be hundreds of missiles blacking out the skies to stop the Soviet Union from retaliating with the counterattack. The Soviet land-based radar installations also showed no signs of an attack. They cannot detect missiles rising above the horizon. That means they would not be alerted until around 15 minutes after the satellites, like the one Petrov was in, were alerted. No missiles reached the Soviet Union after a quarter of an hour. The satellite system was also rushed into action and was not entirely trustworthy. In less than 5 minutes since that red button flashed, Petrov concluded it to be a false alarm and reported it to his superiors. It was later determined that the satellite mistook the sun's reflection off high-altitude clouds as a missile launch.
3, 2, 1. Время для подтверждения истекло.
Relations between the US and the Soviet Union were incredibly strained back in 1983. In response to the Soviet Union's deployment of 14 nuclear missiles, NATO deployed 108 Pershing-2 nuclear missiles in Western Europe back in December 1979, capable of striking eastern Ukraine, Belarusia, or Lithuania within 10 minutes. The slower but longer-range BGM-109G ground-launched cruise missiles capable of hitting farther to the east were also deployed. From February 1981 to 1983, the US also conducted Psychops.
Not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success.
They tested Soviet radar vulnerability and demonstrated their nuclear capabilities. Secret naval operations were done. Even American bombers flew towards Soviet airspace before turning away at the last moment to intimidate the Soviet Union. Soviet leaders believed that the US was preparing for a nuclear attack. Yuri Andropov, then chairman of the KGB, initiated Operation Ryan back in May 1981. KGB agents collected intelligence and monitored the possibility of a nuclear attack from the US. On the 1st of September 1983, just 25 days before the incident with Petrov, the Soviet Union shot down a South Korean passenger jet, Korean Airlines Flight 007, killing all 269 people inside the aircraft.
U.S. soldiers heard what they thought was a routine Soviet training mission.
При нарушении государственной границы приблизиться к цели и уничтожить.
Inside it was U.S. Congressman Larry McDonald and many more Americans. The distrust between the Soviet Union and the Americans was significant. The pressure against Petrov was understandably immense. General Yuri Wotintsev, then commander of the Soviet Air Defense's missile defense units, was the one who first heard Petrov's report of the incident. Petrov underwent questioning and was initially praised for his ultimate decision. He was promised some reward, but he only ended up being reprimanded for improper filing of paperwork for not writing down everything about the incident in the military diary. He said that if he would have been rewarded, his superiors and the scientists responsible for the bugs found in the system would have been punished.
Они вечно находят того, кого надо завалить. И этим козлом отпущения стал именно я.
Petrov got a job at the research institute that had developed the early warning system a year later in 1984. He later retired, clarifying that the army did not force him out as some Western sources claimed. It was to take care of his wife, Raisa, who was diagnosed with cancer. She later died in 1997. Petrov followed her 20 years later on the 19th of May 2017, after passing away from hypostatic pneumonia. It seemed that his importance was not valued enough, since it wasn't widely reported until September later that year. Petrov wasn't so keen on regarding himself as a hero. He said in an interview for the film The Man Who Saved the World, "All that happened didn't matter to me. It was my job. I was simply doing my job. And I was the right person at the right time, that's all. My late wife for 10 years knew nothing about it. So what did you do?" she asked me. "Nothing. I did nothing."
After 10 or 11 minutes passed, the relief came. The over-the-horizon radiolocation radar stations did not find anything, and the decision I had made was confirmed. The start was false.
But it could have been everything. It's been almost 40 years. If today's nuclear threat ever becomes a possibility, who would be the person or people to prevent it? Other than Vasili Arkhipov, who would be our next Stanislav Petrovs?
Пора полностью забыть про холодную войну. Черту политиков. В обоих правительствах имеются ястребы, которые только и хотят, чтобы разгорелся какой-то конфликт. Что наши народы не хотят видеть друг друга врагами. Мы хотим жить мирно и не бояться, что этот мир может быть.
А вы верите в то, что еще раз будет использовано, что ядерное оружие будет использовано по назначению еще?
Думаю, что да.
I think so, yes.